The discovery. Junior Archivist Kexlor's third set of sensory appendages trembled as they navigated through the ancient filing system of the Galactic Council's xenoanthropological archives. Being the newest member of the department meant dealing with all the tedious tasks their superiors deemed beneath them, like organizing centuries of dusty reports about various species across the cosmos. By the eternal void, they muttered, their iridescent exoskeleton catching the dim light of the archive chamber. We're an advanced civilization spanning thousands of light years, yet here I am, shuffling through physical documentation like some primitive species. The complaint died in their neural pathways as a particular file caught their attention. The label was deceptively simple, Terra/Earth, Species Assessment, but what made Kexlor pause was the security classification, Ultra Red Plus. In their 3 cycles of service, they'd never encountered such a designation. This can't be accurate, they said to the empty archive room, their crystalline form shifting in confusion. Humans are barely at Class 3 technological advancement. They haven't even properly colonized their own solar system. Curiosity overwhelmed their professional judgment. After all, what harm could come from examining an assessment of a species that still thought faster-than-light travel was theoretical physics? The file projected a holographic display as soon as Kexlor broke the seal. A warning message flashed in aggressive red. Warning, Species Threat Assessment, Maximum Danger. Approach with extreme caution. Direct contact discouraged. Colonization prohibited. Containment protocols in effect. Oh, come now, Kexlor's crystalline form vibrated with amusement. This must be another prank from those troublemakers in temporal affairs. But as they delved deeper into the file, their amusement evaporated like water on a plasma core. The documentation was extensive, spanning hundreds of years of covert observation. The threat assessment bore the signature of High Commander Vex themselves, the most decorated military mind of the last millennium. This defies logic, Kexlor mumbled, their secondary brains struggling to process the information. According to these metrics, humans rank higher on the threat scale than the Swarm Collective, and they literally consume entire planets. They pulled up the comparative species analysis. Humans lacked natural weapons like the Vorkatha's venomous spines. They couldn't regenerate like the Morphs. They didn't even possess basic psychic abilities like 90% of spacefaring races. By every measurable metric, they should have been thoroughly unremarkable. Yet there it was, in official Galactic Council documentation, humans were classified as the most dangerous species currently known to exist. Kexlor's professional curiosity had evolved into obsession. As a xenoanthropologist, they were trained to understand and classify species based on their characteristics and behaviors. There had to be a logical explanation for this classification. They were about to dive deeper when their neural interface flashed, Junior Archivist Kexlor, report to Senior Administrator ZYXVAC immediately. Perfect timing, as always, they grumbled, carefully resealing the file. But they made sure to note its location in their memory banks. This mystery was too intriguing to ignore. As they made their way out of the archives, Kexlor couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. These humans still use combustion engines in some of their vehicles, for void's sake. What could possibly make them more threatening than species that can tear apart the fabric of spacetime? Their meeting with Senior Administrator ZYXVAC turned out to be nothing more than a tedious lecture about proper archive maintenance protocols. As soon as they were dismissed, Kexlor rushed back to the classified section. They pulled up the first contact records between humans and the Vanthkar Empire, and their crystalline form nearly shattered from shock. No, this must be incorrect, they muttered, cross-referencing the data multiple times. The Vanthkar retreated? The Vanthkar never retreat. The report detailed an attempted surprise invasion of a human research station on their moon. The Vanthkar, notorious for their superior technology and warrior culture, had expected an easy victory. What they hadn't expected was Lieutenant Sarah Martinez, the station's maintenance engineer. According to the surveillance logs, Martinez had been repairing the station's atmospheric recycling system when the Vanth car breached the airlock. They had disabled the station's weapons systems, but they hadn't counted on human ingenuity and determination. The report described how Martinez had combined various maintenance chemicals to create improvised weapons, corrosive agents that ate through the Vanth car's expensive battle armor and smoke bombs that confounded their enhanced sensory systems. But that wasn't even the most disturbing part. Subject proceeded to modify standard repair tools into projectile weapons, Kexlor read, their secondary brain struggling to process the information. Compressed air canisters were converted into propulsion devices for maintenance equipment. The more they read, the more their terror grew. The file contained numerous instances of humans surviving in conditions that should have been instantly fatal. A human male who continued fighting after losing significant blood volume. A group of humans who survived in a damaged mining facility on Mars for 3 weeks with only 6 days' worth of supplies. They did what? Kexlor exclaimed, their crystalline form vibrating with disbelief. They recycled their waste products and created a hydroponic garden using spare parts and algae samples. That's not survival, that's refusing to accept the basic laws of nature. But the report that really made their neural pathways freeze was the infamous office supply incident. It had occurred during a diplomatic meeting between human and Vanth car representatives on a neutral space station. 3 Vanth car warriors, offended by what they perceived as human disrespect, had attempted to teach the primitive species a lesson. The human in question was a junior diplomatic aide named Marcus Wong. The security footage showed Wong, armed with nothing but items from his desk, defeating 3 trained Vanth car warriors. He had used adhesive strips to restrict movement, created makeshift restraints using document fasteners, and temporarily blinded his opponents using powdered beverage mix. Most disturbing of all, Wong was laughing throughout the entire encounter. Observation Note 247, humans appear to derive enjoyment from improvising solutions to dangerous situations. This characteristic makes their behavior patterns highly unpredictable and extremely dangerous. The psychological analysis suggested that humans had evolved as persistence predators, developing problem-solving skills that bordered on the pathological. They didn't just survive, they adapted, improvised, and overcame challenges in ways that other species found completely incomprehensible. The Vanth car Empire, one of the most feared military powers in the galaxy, had subsequently revised their entire assessment of human capabilities. They'd even added a new combat protocol: in case of human encounter, destroy all nearby objects regardless of apparent harmlessness. Kexlor sat back, their crystalline form dimming slightly as they processed what they'd learned. Humans didn't just use tools, they reimagined the very concept of what a tool could be. They didn't just adapt to survive, they bent reality to their will through sheer stubborn determination. Computer, they said, their voice slightly shaky, how many ordinary objects within reach of my current position could humans potentially convert into weapons? The computer whirred for a moment before responding, analysis incomplete. Humans have demonstrated the ability to weaponize any object with mass or chemical properties. Recommendation: do not allow humans access to any objects. Kexlor looked down at their own data tablet and slowly placed it back on the desk. They had a feeling they were only beginning to understand why humans had that ultra-red plus classification. As they prepared to leave for the day, they noticed another file reference in the database, something called the Ganymede Station event. Their appendages hesitated over the access panel. Perhaps they had learned enough for one day. But curiosity won out. After all, how much more terrifying could humans possibly be? They were about to find out exactly why the Galactic Council had created an entirely new security classification just for human-related incidents. The Ganymede Incident. The Ganymede Station event file began with a warning that made Kexlor's crystalline form dim with anxiety. The following report contains information that may cause existential dread in higher reasoning beings. It had started as a routine takeover attempt. The Mecharon Collective, notorious for their superior combat androids, had targeted the human research station on Ganymede, one of Jupiter's moons. The station was considered a low-priority target, staffed by only 12 researchers and maintenance personnel. Initial tactical assessment indicated 99.8% probability of success, Kexlor read, their appendages trembling. However, initial tactical assessment failed to account for Senior Engineer Maya Patel. The footage showed a dark-skinned human female working in what appeared to be a robotics lab when the first Mecharon units breached the station. Instead of panicking or surrendering, Patel's vital signs showed something unprecedented: excitement. "Computer, verify these readings," Kexlor demanded. "Is the human actually experiencing joy?" "Affirmative," the computer responded. Subject displayed elevated levels of endorphins and adrenaline consistent with positive emotional response to extreme danger. The next several minutes of footage made Kexlor question everything they thought they knew about technological warfare. Patel hadn't just fought back, she had turned the Mecharon's own programming against them. Subject utilized maintenance neural interface to upload modified control protocols to enemy units, Kexlor read, their secondary brains struggling to comprehend the implications. She reprogrammed military-grade combat robots using repair diagnostic tools. But that wasn't even the most disturbing part. When the Mecharon Central Intelligence detected the compromise and attempted to initiate remote detonation of the affected units, Patel had laughed, actually laughed, and said something that would later be added to the Galactic Council's list of most terrifying human phrases: "Nice try, but I've already isolated the command circuits. These are my robots now." The security footage showed Patel directing her newly acquired robot army against the remaining Mecharon forces. She had modified their combat protocols with something she called professional wrestling moves, causing the robots to perform physically impossible combat maneuvers that somehow proved exceptionally effective. Subjects note, if they didn't want their robots to perform suplexes, they shouldn't have given them such good articulation, Kexlor read in disbelief. The report continued with analyses from various military experts, all trying to understand how a single human maintenance engineer had not only repelled an invasion force but had also permanently compromised the Mecharon Collective's entire combat android platform. "The humans have a phrase," one expert noted. "They call it thinking outside the box. We are only now beginning to understand that for humans, there is no box. There are no limitations they won't challenge, no systems they won't attempt to modify, no rules they won't try to bend or break." Kexlor's research was interrupted by another notification. Someone had accessed the restricted files about the Titan mining colony incident. Their crystalline form flickered with both dread and anticipation as they opened the file. The Titan incident had occurred 2 Earth years after Ganymede. The Hive Mind Consortium, a species of psychic insectoids, had attempted to take control of a human mining operation on Saturn's largest moon. Their plan was simple: use their overwhelming psychic abilities to dominate the minds of the human workers. What followed was described in the report as a cascading failure of fundamental assumptions about human psychological warfare. The first problem arose when the Hive Mind encountered mining supervisor Jack Thompson, who, according to medical records, had what humans called ADHD. The Hive Mind's attempts to control Thompson's thoughts were described as, like trying to grab water with a fork. Subject's consciousness proved impossible to predict or control due to what humans call hyperfocus, combined with random thoughts, Kexlor read. The Hive Mind's attempt to follow Thompson's mental patterns resulted in 17 drones experiencing total cognitive collapse. But that was just the beginning. The Hive Mind then encountered Security Officer Emma Chen, who practiced something called meditation. Her ordered, disciplined thoughts proved equally problematic, but for the opposite reason: the drones attempting to control her became trapped in recursive loops of calm awareness. Note: human minds are simultaneously too chaotic and too ordered to safely interface with, the report warned. Attempt no further psychic contact. The final straw came when the hive mind tried to access the memories of the colony's physician, Dr. James Williams, who had something called anxiety with intrusive thoughts. The resulting psychic feedback, Kekslor read, their form trembling, caused the entire hive mind network to experience what humans call an existential crisis. 300 drones simultaneously began questioning the nature of their existence, their purpose in the universe, and whether their entire civilization was just a simulation. The report concluded with a new classification for human consciousness: psychically toxic, do not attempt mental contact. But what truly captured Kekslor's attention was the humans' response to learning they had accidentally traumatized an entire invasion force with their thoughts. They had sent a formal apology along with something called self-help books and contact information for something called therapy. They weaponized their mental health struggles, Kekslor whispered in awe and horror. And then they offered to help their enemies recover from the experience. The report included a special addendum about human emotional responses, warning, humans may attempt to form social bonds with anything, including hostile invasion forces. This behavior has been observed to persist even in lethal combat situations. Exercise extreme caution. Kekslor was about to dive deeper into the psychological analysis when they noticed a reference to something called the Jupiter Station cooking incident. The file was marked with multiple warning symbols and a note: contents may cause permanent disruption to logical processing centers. Their appendages hesitated over the access panel. The sensible thing would be to stop now, to forget everything they'd learned about these terrifying creatures called humans. But they knew they couldn't stop. They had to understand why these seemingly primitive beings had earned such fear and respect from the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Computer, they said, their voice barely a whisper, open file on the Jupiter Station cooking incident. The computer paused before responding, warning, this file contains information about human food preparation techniques. Previous exposure has caused multiple analysts to take stress leave. Do you wish to proceed? Kekslor's crystalline form pulsed with determination. Yes. Show me everything. They were about to learn that human creativity reached its most terrifying heights not in combat or technology, but in something they called fusion cuisine. The culinary catastrophe. The Jupiter Station cooking incident file opened with what Kekslor now recognized as the standard warning for human-related events: the following information may cause severe distress to beings with logical processing systems. How dangerous could food preparation possibly be? Kekslor wondered, their crystalline form shifting skeptically. The incident centered around the Jupiter Orbital Research Station's annual International Food Festival, an event that the report described as a demonstration of humanity's complete disregard for molecular gastronomy safety protocols. Station chef Maria Santos had been preparing for the event when the station's primary food synthesizers malfunctioned. Most species would have declared an emergency and requested immediate evacuation. Instead, Santos had viewed it as what humans called a fun challenge. Subject's exact words, Kekslor read in horror, "Well, I guess we're doing this the old-school way." What followed was a masterclass in what the report termed human culinary improvisation. Santos had collected spare parts from maintenance, medical supplies, and even scientific equipment to create what she called a makeshift kitchen. Subject modified a plasma torch for precise caramelization, Kekslor read, their appendages trembling. Repurposed atmospheric filters for smoke infusion. Converted a medical centrifuge into something called a molecular gastronomy spinner. But it was Santos's approach to ingredients that truly horrified the galactic observers. When standard food supplies ran low, she began experimenting with the station's hydroponic gardens in ways that violated several universal cooking conventions. Subject combined Earth vegetables with Martian fungi, Kekslor continued reading, their secondary brains struggling to process the information. Created new flavor profiles by exposing plants to varying gravitational conditions. Deliberately induced stress in botanical specimens to alter their chemical composition. The resulting dishes defied classification. Santos had created what she called zero-G fusion cuisine, combining cooking techniques from Earth's various cultures with the unique conditions of space station life. Note: human cooking techniques appear to follow no logical patterns, the report warned. They will combine any ingredients that don't immediately prove lethal, and sometimes even those that do. The report included a section on something called spicy food, which caused Kexlor's form to flicker with disbelief. They deliberately consumed compounds that cause pain, for pleasure. But the true horror began when the station received an unexpected diplomatic delegation from the Silicon Consciousness, a silicon-based life form known for their rigid adherence to logical processes. Santos, apparently unfazed by the presence of beings who couldn't eat organic matter, had simply said, "Challenge accepted." What followed was described in the report as the Great Silicon Banquet Incident. Santos had somehow created silicon-based dishes using modified geological samples and mineral compounds, effectively inventing an entirely new field of non-organic cuisine in less than 48 hours. The human appeared to treat the fundamental laws of chemistry as mere suggestions, one observer noted. When informed that certain combinations were impossible, she responded with what we have come to recognize as the most dangerous human expression: "Watch me." The Silicon Consciousness representatives had been so impressed by Santos's creations that they had immediately proposed a cultural exchange program. This led to the first-ever silicon-carbon fusion restaurant, which later became a neutral ground for various diplomatic negotiations. They turned molecular impossibilities into a peacemaking tool, Kexlor marveled. But it was the incident's aftermath that truly demonstrated why humans were considered so dangerous. Santos had documented her experiments and shared them across human communication networks, inspiring what the report called a wave of culinary innovation that threatens the very foundations of conventional xenogastronomy. Warning, the report concluded, humans do not view any aspect of their environment as inedible until proven otherwise. Their willingness to experiment with potentially lethal combinations has led to numerous breakthroughs in interspecies nutrition, but also to several emergency evacuations of space stations due to what they term interesting smells. Kexlor was about to close the file when they noticed a subsection labeled Emergency Survival Cuisine. Their curiosity outweighed their better judgment. The section detailed various instances of humans surviving impossible situations through what the report called creative nutrition. There was the case of the Mars colony crisis, where colonists had survived 3 months on what they could grow in recycled water and modified soil created from processed waste materials. They didn't just survive, Kexlor realized, they established new agricultural techniques and opened a restaurant specializing in crisis cuisine. The report included a particularly disturbing note about human survival priorities. Most species, when faced with resource scarcity, focus solely on nutritional efficiency. Humans, however, consistently devote significant energy to making their emergency rations taste good, a concept that appears to hold equal importance to actual survival. This led Kexlor to a related file about something called the Emergency Entertainment Protocol. The warning on this file was uniquely specific: contents may cause immediate shutdown of logic circuits in artificial intelligences. Their appendages hesitated over the access panel. They had already learned so much about these terrifying creatures called humans. Did they really need to know more? But the question that had been forming in their primary brain demanded an answer: how did a species that seemed to treat survival itself as an entertaining challenge manage to become the most feared beings in the galaxy? "Computer," they said, their voice steady despite their internal trembling, "open the Emergency Entertainment Protocol file." Warning, the computer responded, "This file contains information about human recreational activities during crisis situations. Previous exposure has caused multiple analysts to request immediate career changes. Do you wish to proceed?" Kexlor's form pulsed with determination. Display file. They were about to learn that humans' most terrifying quality wasn't their ability to survive against impossible odds, it was their insistence on having fun while doing so. Crisis entertainment. The Emergency Entertainment Protocol file opened with what Kexlor now knew to be an unusually urgent warning: the following information violates all known principles of crisis response behavior. Psychological support recommended during review. The file centered around what humans called the Great Mars Station Lockdown, a 3-month period when a dust storm had trapped 57 humans inside the Olympus Mons research facility. Standard crisis protocols predicted a complete societal breakdown within 2 weeks. Instead, the humans had created something they called the First Annual Mars Olympics. Subject logs indicate the creation of multiple recreational activities using emergency equipment, Kexlor read, their crystalline form flickering in disbelief. They turned survival gear into sports equipment. The footage showed humans using emergency pressure suits for what they called low-gravity wrestling, converting oxygen tanks into bowling pins, and organizing what they termed zero-G ballet in the emergency airlocks. Note: humans appear to derive pleasure from reimagining potentially lethal equipment as entertainment devices, the report stated. When questioned about the risks, Station Commander Olivia Jackson responded, "If we're going to be stuck here, we might as well have fun with it." But what truly disturbed the Galactic observers was the humans' insistence on documenting their activities. They had created something called a reality show from their security footage, complete with commentary and what they called dramatic editing. The broadcast became the highest-rated entertainment program in human history, Kexlor read. They turned their potential doom into popular entertainment. The report included a psychological analysis that made their secondary brains pulse with confusion. Humans demonstrate an unprecedented ability to reframe crisis situations as social bonding opportunities. This trait makes their behavior during emergency scenarios completely unpredictable. Kexlor's research was interrupted by a notification about a related incident, the Neptune Deep Space Station talent show. The file was marked with a unique warning: contents may cause fundamental questioning of rational behavior models. The Neptune incident had occurred during a critical system failure that had left the station's crew of 35 humans without artificial gravity for 2 weeks. Instead of following standard emergency protocols, the crew had organized what they called the Floating Follies. Subject footage shows humans performing elaborate dance routines in zero gravity, Kexlor read, their form vibrating with a mixture of horror and fascination. They composed songs about their situation, created comedic skits about their malfunctioning equipment, and established a scoring system for what they called creative emergency response techniques. The report included a particularly disturbing observation: when faced with potentially lethal technical failures, humans frequently respond by turning them into competition opportunities. This behavior appears to actually improve their problem-solving capabilities. But it was the section on emergency social innovations that truly demonstrated why humans were considered so unpredictable. During various crisis situations, humans had invented dozens of new sports, created multiple art forms, established new social traditions, and even developed new languages. They don't just adapt to survive, Kexlor realized. They adapt to thrive. The file contained numerous examples of what the report called crisis-driven cultural evolution. During a prolonged power failure on Europa Station, the humans had invented a new form of storytelling that combined mime, shadow puppetry, and what they called interpretive dance, all performed in emergency-like conditions. Note: human creativity appears to be inversely proportional to available resources, the report warned. The more limited their options, the more innovative their solutions become. This led Kexlor to a subsection about something called the Void Walkers Club, a group of humans who had survived various space accidents and turned their experiences into what they called extreme survival training seminars. They commercialized near-death experiences. Kexlor's crystalline form pulsed with disbelief. The report detailed how these humans not only survived impossible situations but turned them into educational opportunities. They created training programs, wrote books, and established what they called survival entertainment complexes, where other humans could experience simulated disasters for fun. Warning: the report emphasized, humans appear to actively seek out dangerous situations for recreational purposes. This behavior extends to deliberately creating controlled crisis scenarios for what they term team-building exercises. Kexlor was about to process this information when they noticed a reference to something called the Pluto Research Station Game Night Incident. The file bore multiple warning symbols and a note: contents may cause permanent reassessment of species threat classification. Their appendages hovered over the access panel. They had already learned that humans treated survival as a challenge and crisis as entertainment. What could possibly be more terrifying than that? "Computer," they said, their voice wavering slightly, "open the Pluto Research Station file." "Warning," the computer responded, "this file contains information about human recreational mathematics and probability manipulation. Previous exposure has caused multiple analysts to request immediate retirement. Do you wish to proceed?" Kexlor's form pulsed with determination. Display file. They were about to learn that humans' most frightening capability wasn't their ability to survive or their talent for crisis innovation, it was their peculiar relationship with what they called games of chance. The final revelation. The Pluto Research Station Game Night Incident file began with the most severe warning Kexlor had ever encountered: the following information fundamentally challenges all known laws of probability. Philosophical crisis support team recommended during review. The incident occurred during a 6-month isolation period at the Pluto Research Station, where 15 humans had been stationed to study cosmic radiation patterns. During their downtime, they had established what they called Extreme Game Night. Initial observation appeared routine, Kexlor read, their crystalline form pulsing with anticipation. Humans engaged in recreational probability exercises using randomized number generators and symbolic cards. But as they read further, their secondary brains began to short-circuit. The humans hadn't just played games, they had somehow bent probability itself through sheer force of will. Subject Anna Petrova demonstrated statistically impossible winning streaks in multiple card games, the report noted. When questioned about her technique, subject responded, "Sometimes you just have to believe in the heart of the cards." The report included a desperate note from a quantum mathematics expert: "They're not calculating odds, they're simply deciding that improbable outcomes should happen. And somehow, reality complies." But it wasn't just games of chance. The humans had created what they called challenge runs, deliberately attempting tasks with the lowest possible probability of success, seemingly for entertainment. They invented new laws of probability, Kexlor whispered in horror. Not through science or technology, but through what they call determination and spite. The file contained numerous examples of what the report termed probability defiance events. During one particularly notorious incident, station engineer Marcus Wong had attempted to repair a quantum fluctuation drive with nothing but adhesive tape and optimism. Subject's exact words before attempting the impossible repair: "What's the worst that could happen?" Kexlor read, their form trembling. Note: this phrase has been added to the list of most dangerous human expressions. The repair had not only worked but had somehow improved the drive's efficiency by 47%. When questioned by investigators, Wong had shrugged and said, "Sometimes you just got to show physics who's boss." This led Kexlor to the classified section on what the Galactic Council called the human paradox. The document was co-signed by the highest-ranking scientists and military leaders in known space. Humans, the report stated, appear to operate outside normal probability constraints. They consistently achieve outcomes that should be statistically impossible, not through any identifiable means, but through what they call, trying anyway. The report included a theoretical framework that made Kexlor's crystalline form pulse with existential dread. Evidence suggests that human consciousness may have a subtle but measurable effect on reality itself. They don't just defy the odds, they reshape them through sheer stubborn refusal to accept limitations. This theory was supported by countless incidents across human space. When faced with impossible situations, humans didn't just survive, they thrived. They didn't just solve problems, they redefined them. They didn't just adapt to their environment, they made the environment adapt to them. Warning, the report emphasized, human optimism appears to be contagious. Extended contact with humans may result in other species beginning to attempt impossible tasks with alarming success rates. Kexlor's research was interrupted by an urgent notification. The Galactic Council had just updated its species threat assessment protocols. The new guidelines included a special classification, human interaction risk. The classification read, any species or civilization that maintains prolonged contact with humans may begin exhibiting dangerous traits, including but not limited to, increased creativity, reduced fear of failure, heightened problem-solving capabilities, and a disturbing tendency to attempt statistically impossible tasks. But it was the final section of the report that made Kexlor understand why humans had earned their unique security classification. Titled, The Ultimate Threat, it detailed the real reason why humans were considered so dangerous. Humans, the report concluded, don't just break rules, they make breaking rules look fun. They don't just survive, they turn survival into an art form. They don't just defy the impossible, they make the impossible seem outdated and boring. But most dangerously of all, they make other species want to be more like them. The report included a final warning that would haunt Kexlor's neural pathways forever. The greatest threat humans pose to galactic civilization is not their technology, their adaptability, or even their probability-defying abilities. It's their capacity to make other species believe that anything is possible if you're stubborn enough to keep trying. As Kexlor prepared to close the files and return to their regular duties, they noticed something alarming: they had started to think like a human. They had broken into classified files, questioned established facts, and pursued knowledge despite clear warnings not to do so. Computer, they said, their voice trembling with revelation, how many regulations have I broken today? 17 major protocols and 32 minor regulations, the computer responded. However, you have also made 3 significant discoveries and established 2 new theoretical frameworks. Would you like to continue your research? Kexlor's crystalline form pulsed with what they now recognized as excitement. Display next classified file. They had finally understood the true reason humans were classified as the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They made breaking the rules look like the most natural thing in the universe. And worst of all, they made you want to join them in doing it. As they accessed the next file, Kexlor realized they had become part of what the Galactic Council feared most: the spreading of what humans called thinking outside the box. And somehow, they couldn't bring themselves to care. The end.